The Azerbaijan Grand Prix for 2017 will go down in history, Shove. What a race, where to start? Let's go back to the start. Obviously Valtteri and Kimi coming together, which meant you had a race leader and then you had a driver in dead last. What were your options at that point?
Well, I mean, we talked through this. Obviously, having such a big accident on lap one wasn't ideal. But the plan there was pretty straightforward. If you have an accident, you come in. We were on the super soft, we swapped to the soft tyre. From there, Valtteri could go to the end. But the big issue with him was so much damage on the car, especially that front puncture meant you just couldn't go quickly. He was sort of dragging along on the plank with one wheel bouncing in the air. And we lost an enormous amount of time. And you saw that when he exited back out, he was actually mid-pack. So he'd lost most of that lap. He was a back marker, he was having to overtake cars, and then he had a full lap to get back. So really his hopes in a normal race there, a race without safety cars, were nil. He was never ever going to score any points. But we knew with Baku, with the layout, the difficulty recovering cars, the high chance of a crash, we knew that it was worth just sitting in there and waiting, because if there was a safety car, Valtteri was going to get his lap back.
Which brings us nicely on to my next question, Shove. Safety car did come from Daniel Kvyat's breakdown, and then a second one straight away with the Force Indias coming together. What did that do to Lewis as a race leader? Well,
this was at a stage where, again, you were already into the region that you could run to the end. It was a no-brainer, really, that you were going to come in. We knew that other people would follow him in. And while you could have stayed out, you could have pushed further on the tyres to get track position. The danger is, once the field's bunched up on the first safety car, if you then get another safety car, you're then completely stuffed, because you're going to drop right to the back. So you can be pretty sure that people are also going to peel in, and Lewis would have been in a position to retain the lead. And, you know, quite straightforward decision.
Well, let's talk about the end of the safety car periods, because that's also crucial for a race leader, isn't it? Especially now in Baku.
Yeah, I mean, Baku's an incredibly difficult circuit for the restart, because the safety car lights go out quite late. And the problem is, from that final corner, turn 16, to the safety car line, which is where people can start to overtake, and importantly, where the lead car must not overtake the safety car before that line. In a Formula One car, you can cover that distance in about half the time you can in the safety car.
Burned.
So you've got to get him. You've got to let him get a long, long way ahead, and it's building that gap that's difficult. And we looked at a lot of the support races to look at how the safety cars pan out, because it's quite challenging. If a guy gets on your toe when you go, they're probably going to come by you on the restart. Now add to that, you've got cold tyres. It's difficult to brake going into turn one. So there's lots of things that the driver needs to think about. Does he go early? Does he wait? Does he go late? And how can he surprise the others, you know, not giving them an indication of when he's actually going to start pushing? Because at the time the lights go out, he can control the pace. He can decide how fast people go. But when he starts to go, he can't then back off again. So you've got to make your decision and stick with it.
A busy time for race leader Lewis Hamilton at that point. What did it do for Valtteri?
Well, for Valtteri, it was the opportunity we'd been waiting for. You know, the reason we were sort of still in there driving round, because when you get the safety car, you'll notice the message comes up on the screen that says lap cars may now overtake. So what that meant was that Valtteri could get by all these cars, and then he's having to come around the circuit and get onto the back of the pack before the race begins. But that was the thing that gave him back all that time that he'd lost, essentially. So yes, we're dead last, but we're actually in a much better position than we were before the safety car, because we're at least on the lead lap then. And really his task was pretty simple there. It was just, you've got to get past everyone. Now, the only other opportunity we took with Valtteri, because we'd fitted the soft tyre on lap one, we've then already run 2 different specs of tyres, which satisfies the regulations. It gave him the opportunity to jump back onto the super soft, which was the faster tyre. And actually, by that stage of the race, most of the top 10 were on the soft tyre, so he had the advantage of being on a faster tyre that would also easily get to the end of the race.
Let's look at Lewis's strategy now, starting on the super soft, switching to the soft, but then why back onto the super soft?
Well, this was at the red flag, and when you get a red flag, you effectively get a free change of tyres. You're allowed to change the tyres in the pits. We're also, importantly, allowed to repair accident damage. So Lewis had some damage around the back of his car where Sebastian drove into him. But you saw there were a number of people who'd sustained a bit of damage from various passing moves that maybe didn't go cleanly, and they were all busy fixing their cars. But again, like we said, both tyres could do the race distance. So at this stage, everyone was putting on the super soft because you get the free stop and that tyre's a quicker tyre to go to the end of the race.
And obviously this one here wasn't to change tyres.
No, that was to fix the headrest, which we didn't really have any option to come in and do that. It's something that when we saw it coming up, we knew that we were going to get the call from Charlie to come in and fix it. It wasn't something that Lewis was realistically going to be able to put right himself
sort of
in the car.
grabbing on, holding on to it.
Yeah, well, it's horrible when you see that happening because you know what's coming next. And Lewis had been in a great position all weekend. You're leading the race, he hadn't really had to push hard at all, and then suddenly the whole landscape changes around you, and you're back in the battle having to recover points. And by this stage of the race, we were happy to actually keep the tyres. We just changed the headrest, left the tyres on the car, because it had been one of those races where you'd run a lot of sets, and actually those were in pretty good condition and good to run to the end.
Let's look now at the overall top 10 with all the different tyre strategies. We see the super soft, then into the soft, and then everyone changing. So that was the red flag, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think this is really an indication that the tyre choice was very conservative in Baku. You know, when you've got your two softest tyres that could do the whole race, then we could have easily managed on the ultra soft tyre. And it was one that perhaps caught Pirelli out a little bit when they were choosing the tyres. Next year, I think you're going to see this as an ultra soft race. But you know, you can see borne out by the fact that all the cars at the end were all on super soft to the finish.
We look just over my left shoulder here, and the track temperature at 38, and that had fallen away from the start of the race. How did that affect you?
It can get a little bit more difficult for the front tyres, really. The rear tyres are okay because you've got a lot of power in these cars and it's putting a lot of temperature in the rear. But the front, at a circuit like Baku, there aren't many really fast high energy corners, and it's difficult to get those hot enough. So as it cools down, you've got to watch things like brake locking. The restarts get a bit more tricky. And also, with it being a city Grand Prix, a lot of the track's in shade. There's a lot of tall buildings around. And as the sun goes down, actually, this is just measurement at one place, but you'll find that actually it has a very significant effect as a lot of the track starts to move into shade. So you do keep an eye on it, and it does play a part. But again, the tyres weren't marginal here, so it's not like another race where you're really grateful for the cooling track to make it easier to make the tyres last.
Let's look at the final top 10 positions. I don't think anyone could have put a prediction down of that podium, or could we, Shove?
No, not well. I mean, you saw yourself. It was a completely chaotic race. It was very difficult to predict what was going on, people crashing into each other, safety cars, red flags. I think what you could say though was that when you saw a number of the key players go out or have issues, Sebastian's penalty, Lewis with his headrest, Verstappen, who'd looked very good most of the weekend, had the issue with the power unit, that then creates the opportunity for the others. Coupled with the safety cars, you saw like guys like Ricciardo, who around lap 6 or 7, he had a brake issue early on that they had to stop and clear. Early on in the race, it wasn't looking like it was going his way, but it was one of those races where everyone had a bit of a trip towards the back and they all made their way forwards.
Well, I'll take your attention down there to the bottom right for the total overtake, Shove, 137. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it is a good track for overtaking. You've got a massive long straight. It's nearly 2 kilometres that you're at full throttle, so by the end of it, you're going pretty quickly. But it's this possibility to overtake that really saved Valtteri. He was just able to pick the cars off one by one. And it's tricky actually when you get in a train because of the DRS. If you've got 3 cars, this guy in the middle's also got DRS. It was quite difficult for Valtteri to get by some of them. So we had a Force India and a Toro Rosso train. But he persevered and he did a good job and the car was working well. But yeah, it's great for that, and to see such good overtaking on track is brilliant for the sport.
It was a phenomenal race. A lot of drivers in their post-race interviews saying that this was the race they were almost expecting last year when we went to Baku for the first time. Do you think we're going to see more of this kind of race going forward, 2018?
I think, yeah, it's the layout of the track. It's difficult to recover cars. There's sections that are very narrow, but you've got other opportunities where you can overtake and people are actually trying moves. As you say, this is what we expected. We were very surprised in 2016 not getting a safety car, especially having seen the Formula 2 races there where they were strewn with safety cars. And I think this is going to be one of the classic races on the calendar to come. It's one of those races that will never be dull.
Well, we'll look forward to Azerbaijan 2018, and we're going to look forward to Spielberg in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much.